Welcome to Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. I'm your host, Nick Giffen, predictive analyst here at Action Network, and joining me, as always, my co-host, Stephen Young of Roto-Grinders, better known as Stevie TPFL. And this week, we're talking bets for the Forever 400 here on Running Hot. Last week at Las Vegas, Kyle Larson held off a late charging Christopher Bell to clinch one of the 4 championship spots at Phoenix. Kyle Busch came home third to round out the podium, but more importantly, all 8 remaining playoff drivers finished inside the top 11. Obviously, Larson has qualified for Phoenix, but the other 7 drivers, by finishing that far up front, are all still in it without really needing a must-win scenario, at least this week. We'll see about Martinsville, but nobody's in a must-win spot yet this week. So, Stevie, what'd you think of Las Vegas, and what do you think of the playoff scenario?
I mean, we kind of talked about Hendrick being really fast and Joe Gibbs Racing being really fast last week on the podcast, and it's exactly what it was. You know, yep. Larson, Byron, Bell, they were all really fast. I mean, I think Denny Hamlin, had he gotten some clean air at any point in that race, he would have been really good. I think Truex really struggled a lot more than kind of I expected, just in general. And then Chris Buscher, Keselowski was so good. And Buscher just had one of, I don't know if it was an off day or what, but, I mean, he didn't get any stage points. It was a really bad race for him playoff-wise. So, rough day for him. Great day for Christopher Bell. Stage points, good finish. Had a potential chance to win that race at the end. And just a clean race. You know, we've been talking so much about, Christopher Bell needing clean races. It was really good to see him just put together a clean race, and the finish was exciting. Bell came out of nowhere with 10 laps to go. He was so much faster than Larson at the end of that race, and it would have been, you know, kind of crazy to see what happened, because I still think Kyle Larson is a huge favorite at Homestead. We're going to talk about that here in a few minutes, but would have been interesting to see Bell win that race and see how that kind of shaped up things for Homestead, but it didn't. Great race. I mean, Las Vegas. Nick, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this really quick, but I really think the Las Vegas races should be at night. I just feel like even the Xfinity races and everything, I feel like I know why they can't be, especially this time of the year, because of NFL and TV and all that stuff, but I feel like the racing is just better at night at Vegas. I don't know.
I would love it from a fan standpoint, just because it's cooler at night, and Las Vegas is still hot this time of year. But yeah, I agree. I think the racing would be better at night as well. I didn't think it was a bad race. You could pass for the lead.
Oh, yeah,
we saw in the first stage for sure. You know, Larson took the lead from Bell. Bell took it back on the long run. Christopher Bell definitely had the best long run car. Every time we had a long run, he was the one that came to the front, and he almost got the win there. So I thought it was a good race, but I agree. I think it'd be even better if it was a night race. But, you know, looking at this playoff picture here, Denny Hamlin, 2 points to the good. Martin Truex Jr., 2 points to the good. William Byron, 7 points to the good. This is a really tight playoff race. And even Chris Buscher, who you mentioned, got no playoff points, no stage points, I should say. He's still only 23 points back. So if he has a really strong Homestead, gets a lot of stage points and a strong finish, he's not necessarily in a must-win spot these next 2 weeks. So really interesting playoff picture. You know, he did have an off day, but at the same time, he still finished 11th. He looked really strong right at the start of the race, and I don't remember what happened, but something set him back mid-pack. It may have just been strategy with that early caution there, and he never really regained all that track position back. But tough day, like you said, for Chris Buscher, but we're coming to a track that's good for him. So let's talk about it. We are going to Homestead this weekend for the Forever 400, of course, named after Kevin Harvick, who is in his last season of full-time racing in the Cup Series. So Homestead, a 1.5-mile track, but it's not your typical 1.5-mile track. It's not the tri-oval, quad-oval style 1.5-mile. It's what we call a true oval, which has those 180-degree turns at each end. It's pretty steeply banked. It's got the variable banking, high tire wear. So Homestead, how are we handicapping this one, Stevie?
It's a really unique racetrack. Tire wear wise, we can compare it to Darlington. You can compare it to Auto Club, you know, higher speed racetracks that have a lot of tire wear. So, I mean, you compare it to that. And then, you know, 1.5 wise, I mean, I think you'd compare it to Las Vegas the most. Both of those tracks are steep tracks, and Vegas is getting a little bit more tire wear. So I think, you know, cars that were fast this week at Vegas are going to be strong. I think cars that were fast at maybe Darlington 2 have some potential here this weekend. So Homestead's one of my favorite racetracks. I hate that it's not the championship race, and it's
Me
not
too, man.
because like I live in Florida. Homestead's really easy for me to go to. It just always produces great racing.
Always.
Every kind of model car, any next gen, whatever kind of generation car we've ever thrown at Homestead, the racing is always phenomenal, and it's because it's unique. Like you talked about how the corners kind of have that banking, the tire wear because of how abrasive it, the Florida weather is. We get the hot, the rain, and everything. So, just a phenomenal racetrack, phenomenal racing, and I said it last week, and I'm going to say it again. I think this is going to be the best race of the season. I think it's going to be a phenomenal race.
It's going to be hard to top Kansas 1, but I think it could be up there with that. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Homestead produces just absolutely phenomenal racing. If you haven't been watching NASCAR, if you kind of gotten out of it because of NFL, this will be one you do not want to miss. It's going to be a great race. Homestead produces arguably the best racing in the whole series as far as any track is concerned. So yeah, I think as far as, handicapping this race, it's a high tire wear, like you said. We can use some other high tire wear tracks. Darlington, Auto Club way back earlier in this year is a lot of drivers do really well at Auto Club that also do well at Homestead. But of course, Homestead is its own unique beast. Like a guy like Eric Jones does really well at Darlington, but for some reason struggles more at Homestead. So we always need to keep things like that in mind. You can definitely account for that in models. I mean, I have track specific, I have track type stuff. So in my model, it's at least able to capture the fact that Eric Jones is better at a Darlington type than a Homestead type. So still, pretty interesting, but there are drivers that just certainly are good at this track, and then other drivers that aren't good at this track. So like you said, because it's so unique, but we can definitely pull in some Kansas, some Las Vegas type stuff because they're intermediate. So at least in terms of the horsepower and the package, that kind of stuff is similar. But really, we want to be using Homestead itself, and then probably Darlington as the next best comp, and then maybe Auto Club as the next best comp after that, I would think.
Yeah, I think overall this racetrack is a racetrack you can use old data for, because it's such a unique racetrack. Last season, the cars that were fast here in the past were fast. The cars that had struggled. So I think this is one of those racetracks, even with this next gen car, that you can use, old data for. I know we've switched a lot of our data that we're using to the newer car, but I think this is one that you can definitely look at, past history for.
Absolutely. I agree with that. So with that said, I guess it is time to dive into our bets. As always, we're going to take you for a lap around Homestead. That's 4 turns, 1 pick from Stevie, 1 pick from me for each turn. Before we drive into victory lane, and I'm excited about this one because I threw 2 victory lane options in our sheet, and Stevie's on both of them, so I'm excited about that. We'll get to talking about that, so we may as well. Stevie, taking the green flag. Let's dive into turn 1. All right, green flag's waving, Stevie. Lead us into turn 1.
I'm going to go to a top 10 bet. You're going to hear that a lot on this podcast. There is some value in the top 10 market this week. I am going to go AJ Allmendinger top 10 plus 550. My model is showing this at one of the best values on the entire weekend. Here I have it closer to like 350 for AJ Allmendinger. Really good at Darlington 2 earlier this year, and was a top 5 car at Homestead last year. So high tire wear racetracks, we always talk about the dirt guys and the guys that can run the top and rip the top. AJ Allmendinger is really good at high tire wear racetracks. This is a guy that is very good at managing his tires. I think that this is a really good opportunity for them to finish the season strong. He finished 3rd in this race last year. So I have AJ Allmendinger at, like I said, one of the best values of the weekend here at plus 550 for a top 10.
Yeah, I love this bet. AJ Allmendinger was one that stood out to me as well. I almost put him on my sheet, and like you said, we have a lot of top 10 bets. This is another one that I considered. The bad thing about having so many top 10 bets that you like is you kind of just have to pick the best ones, because once somebody has gotten a top 10, there's only 9 spots left, so you really need a top 9. So it's one of those spots where I can't take 6, 7, 8 top 10 bets. I'm gonna have to limit it to my 3 or 4 best ones. And I do think this is potentially one of the 3 or 4 best ones, but there's so many out there that it's hard to figure out which one is the best. But for me, my turn one pick, I got to go to the driver that this race is literally named after, and that is Kevin Harvick for a top 10 at plus 110. Stevie, this guy has had top 10s at this specific track 14 out of the last 15 times. And then we go back beyond that, and he had another 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the previous 5. So that's 18 out of the last 20 Homestead races. He has finished inside the top 10. I mean, that's just incredible. And we're getting him at plus money for a top 10. Kevin Harvick at high tire wear tracks. I mean, we see this with Richmond time and again. We've seen it at Auto Club. We've seen it at Darlington. He is so good at high tire wear tracks. It doesn't matter if it's a fast high tire wear track or a short high tire wear track. High tire wear tracks and Kevin Harvick, you want to be betting him. So Kevin Harvick plus 110 for a top 10 finish is my turn one pick.
Some would say that he should have won Darlington a couple weeks, or I guess a couple months ago now. Time flies. So in September, some say he should have won that race, and I'm part of that some. I think he had one of the best cars that day, and pit strategy just kind of hurt him a little bit. But, I mean, if we throw in all the 1.5s this year, we throw in the high tire wear tracks, he has the second best average finish at 10.0. So, I mean, that obviously, with the track type of this racetrack in general, if we look at just Darlington and Auto Club, he had top 8 cars in all 3 of those races. So, yeah, I mean, Kevin Harvick is always someone that I like betting for top 10s. He's consistent. And you said it. Like, this race is named after him. No Stewart-Haas car is in the playoffs. There's no way you don't send your best car out of the whole shop with Kevin Harvick this week. You give him one final shot. They have that iconic Budweiser paint scheme on this car that he won the championship here in 2014 at Homestead. Like, I think it's going to be a huge emotional weekend for Kevin Harvick, but once he gets in that race car, he's going to lock in, and I think it's going to be a really good race for him. So we'll see. The speed has been all over the place for Stewart-Haas. They're obviously testing a ton of stuff right now, but you have to bring your best stuff for Kevin Harvick at Homestead this weekend.
Absolutely. So turn one, we got a couple top 10 bets, and I think we're going to have the same in turn two. Turn two, Stevie, another top 10 bet for you, another top 10 bet for me. Well, let's hear yours first.
I mean, we're managing our tire wear here in the first 2 turns
Definitely.
with some top 10 bets, but I'm going to go and pay a little juice with my top 10 here. I got Ryan Blaney, top 10, minus 110. Blaney is super hit or miss on high tire wear racetracks, but we know that like the Ford camp and Penske camp is very focused on Ryan Blaney right now as far as a whole. I think this is a weekend that we see Blaney perform a lot better than we have seen in the past. He was really good on the long run at Homestead last year. He was like a top 3 car as far as long run speed at Homestead last year. So I think this is a spot we're just betting on that long run speed. He had some issues at the end of last year's race, which kind of hurt his finish. And I think that could potentially skew this line a little bit. He comes out with any kind of practice speed, this moves to like minus 140. So I'm jumping on this when it's almost at even money here early in the week at minus 110.
Yeah, like you said, he had some issues at the end of the race. If you're just looking at finishing positions, that one is going to be misleading. He finished 9th in stage 1. He finished 4th in stage 2. That shows you, where he really was running throughout most of that race. And like you said, one of the best cars on the long run there. So don't overlook Ryan Blaney this week. For my turn 2 pick, I'm going to go to the Hendrick Motorsports camp. They're always really good here. We know Kyle Larson's great here. We've seen William Byron be awesome here. But Alex Bowman is actually pretty good here as well. And he's really good at high tire wear tracks in general. Now, Bowman didn't get to race this race last year because of the concussion issues that he had. So, he didn't get to run that one. But prior to that, in 2 of the previous 3 races, he did finish top 10 at this track. He's really good at high tire wear tracks in general. You think about his first career win came at Chicagoland back in 2019, another high tire wear track. He's won at Auto Club, a high tire wear track. He's won at Richmond, a high tire wear tracks. He's won at Las Vegas last year, which we have last week talked about is becoming more that medium high tire wear. So at these high speed or even the lower speed, but high tire wear tracks or medium high tire wear tracks, he does really well. He finished 8th at Auto Club earlier this year, 3rd at Las Vegas earlier this year. He finished 10th at Kansas earlier this year. That's 3 top 10s already at medium to high tire wear tracks that are, higher speed as well, not even counting Richmond, where he finished 8th earlier this year. And then if you think, just other intermediate tracks in general, he finished 12th at Charlotte. So this is a guy who can get top 10s, and he's just priced way too long at plus 190 for a top 10 finish.
Yeah, and again, we know that Bowman is the test car for Hendrick Motorsports, so that doesn't affect how good he is on a high tire wear track. So
right.
We don't have a ton of high tire wear tracks in general in the Cup Series right now. So I don't know if they're really going to be testing too much this weekend as far as overall testing. So I think we saw some stuff from Alex Bowman last week where, he did a long run and was testing some stuff, but I think that you just kind of bet on his talent at high tire wear tracks this weekend at this number. So my model has this closer to 150.
Yeah.
And I think that's still even, really, really solid value.
Yeah, I'm actually even higher than your model on that at plus 150. I'm more like plus 130. So definitely plus 190 on Alex Bowman. So we're halfway through the turns, Stevie, but we got a little bit more to go. So you know what everyone loves? Compliments, and compliments are guaranteed after making the leap to skincare with Caldera Lab. I'm talking about how you look today and 20 years from now. The results are incredible in just a little amount of time. Men's Skincare and Caldera Lab are the perfect pair for you to look and feel your best. Super easy to add your morning and nightly routines. Clear skin, less wrinkles, and less signs of aging. Enough said. Caldera Lab Skincare. Join the other 100,000 men who trust Caldera Lab to show your best first impressions this fall. Now, Caldera Lab knows the skincare world is heavily female-driven and has long been the wild, wild west for men. That's why they're making the solution simple with just 3 steps. Step 1, the clean slate, which is a face wash to start and end your day. Number 2, the base layer, which is a daily moisturizer to hydrate your skin. And of course, 3rd, the good, which is an eye serum you can put on at night to help your skin look tighter and smoother. And just for our audience here at Running Hot, we have an exclusive deal. Use code RUNNING at calderalab.com and get 20% off right now. That's 20% off with code RUNNING at calderalab.com. Make unforgettable and first impressions with Caldera Lab. Okay, Stevie, we got another set of turns here, the back half at Homestead. Let's dive into turn 3. What do you got for us in turn 3, Stevie?
All right, we saved some tire. Now we're gonna really kind of hammer down the end of this. Yeah, we're just gonna let it go here. So I'm gonna go to Chris Buscher at 20-1. I'm gonna do this as a half unit and try to have a nice little 10 unit win here. But Buscher is someone that I'm really high on coming into this weekend. They were really fast at Homestead a couple years ago. Brad Keselowski was really fast at Homestead last year. I was looking at my data. They obviously were testing all playoffs last year. We talked about this so many times, but they hit on something with Keselowski's car at Homestead last year. We've seen it at Darlington now. Both times we were at Darlington, both of those cars, Keselowski and Buscher, had speed. They've hit on something at the high tire wear intermediates. So I'm just going to kind of bet on that early in the week at 20-1, where if they do unload with some speed, he qualifies inside the top 10. We're looking at probably 12 or 14 or 15-1. So I'm going to believe in what my data suggests and what I'm seeing as far as this team as a whole. Keselowski's focus is Buscher. We know that. They were fast, like you said at the beginning of that race, and they just kind of whiffed on, I don't know if he had damage or what. They whiffed on something because he fell off a ton in that race, and Keselowski was really fast. We saw Keselowski out front. This team as a whole, the organization as a whole, has speed. I think Buscher has that upside to win this race. I think Keselowski has the upside to win this race if you want to get off the board as well. So really like Buscher at 20-1 here early in the week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was able to grab him at 25-1, but 20-1 still available at BetMGM. So make sure you grab that one. I love this. This is one of the ones we were talking about where I put it in as a victory lane option, and you chose the other one because you wanted to put this as one of your picks in your turns. So I love it. So right there with you on Chris Buscher. For my turn 3 pick, I feel like I have this guy in turn 3 a lot, and that is the 3 car of Austin Dillon. I'm going to take his top 10 finish at 5-1 for half a unit. I did actually get this at 6-1. It's since moved to 5-1 by the time we ended up recording this. So I'll track it in the action app at 5-1, but I did get it 6-1. Still like it at 5-1. Austin Dillon's really good here. He finished 4th in this race last year. He has 3 top 10s in the last 4 starts here. So already 5-1 seems crazy given that he's had 3 top 10s in the last 4 here. And he's had 7 straight finishes at Homestead of 12th or better. That is an incredible streak. 7 straight of barely missing out on the top 10 or being inside the top 10. Earlier this year, he finished 9th at Auto Club, which again, one of the similar tracks. So they've had speed at this track type this year. We know RCR always puts fast cars here as well. I mean, Tyler Reddick it's a great track for Tyler Reddick, but he finished 4th and 2nd at Homestead in 2 of the 3. We saw, of course, Austin Dillon finished 4th last year. So RCR has had 3 straight races of a driver finishing inside the top 5. Now they have Kyle Busch, who has always been good at Homestead himself. So, there'll be some good feedback there from Busch as well. So I think Richard Childress Racing, they really hit it off at this track. Doesn't matter who the driver is. And we've seen Austin Dillon himself be really good at this track.
Yeah, I think working with Christopher Bell obviously helped a little bit, but he was good at this track before, not Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick.
Yeah.
He was good at this track before Tyler Reddick came to this team, so I have bet this as well. I did not get it at 6-1. Congratulations on that. But I wrote up 2 half-unit top 10 bets, and Austin Dillon and AJ Allmendinger at plus 500 were the 2, because I think realistically there's upside for both of these guys to finish inside the top 10.
Yep.
He's finished 12th or better in every race at Homestead in the last 5 years. He is consistent here. He's fast here. He has one of the best driver rating. He has one of the best average running position. Mm-hmm. He's not doing it by strategy, which we see sometimes with Austin Dillon and this team. They're doing it with speed.
Yep.
So his dirt background that people forget about definitely helps him at a place like Homestead.
Definitely the dirt background helps. At least that's what we see. These guys with the dirt background, Larson, Reddick, Christopher Bell does really well here. So a lot of guys with the dirt background end up doing really well at Homestead. So 3 turns down, 1 turn to go. Time to roll the corner through turn 4. What do you got for us in turn 4?
All right, he disappointed me last week, just in general, but I'm going to go back to Martin Truex this week. He's plus 625 over on BetMGM. He's really good at Homestead. He hasn't put one in the victory lane here in a while, but I mean, 3 finishes inside the top 3 in 3 of the last 5 races. Averages the second most fastest laps behind Kyle Larson, the second most laps led behind Kyle Larson. Highest quality pass percentage, even higher than Kyle Larson. So just a guy that always has speed at this racetrack. They always perform well. And I mean, honestly, after last weekend, he's plus 2, but I mean, that's close. This playoff race is close. So I think that they're going to try to put one together here. Martinsville is good for Truex, but the short flats haven't been as good for him with the new car. I think this is a spot we see Martin Truex Jr. end up in victory lane. I mean, I told you prior to going live here that, I mean, if you're not betting Kyle Larson, I think looking at 3 or 4 of these other top-end drivers, it's just going to be a race of the studs this week, and I think Martin Truex Jr. at plus 625 is where I'm going.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Martin Truex Jr. really good at this track. Another one, it's like all these old school championship drivers. I call them old school, but the guys who've been around a long time, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin, they have all gotten really good at this track. And so they're always in contention for the win. It seems like at least one of them is always in contention for the win at Homestead. So Martin Truex Jr. plus 625 at BetMGM. Really like that bet. For me, I'm going with what you would like to call a funsy bet here, Stevie. We're going to go Harrison Burton, top 10 at 20-1. Just a quarter unit play here. So I know we're getting a little crazy, but Harrison Burton, quietly really good at this track type. He has an Xfinity win at Homestead. He finished 6th earlier this year at Darlington in a race where he ran 14th in flags. So like actual speed, he was 14th at the first Darlington race where he finished 6th. So this guy is able to run this track type really well. If we look at Darlington and Homestead throughout his career, he has an average finish of 15.3 in the he had one DNF at Darlington in the second Darlington race this year, but all the other non-DNF races, he has an average finish over 4 races of 15.3. I think the worst of those is a 21st. And then add in Auto Club earlier this year, where he had another 15th place finish. Harrison Burton, really good at this track type, really good at these high tire wear tracks, especially if they have some high speed. I think this is just a situation where we kind of have to take a 20-1 shot, hope he has another car that's capable of running in the top 20, and then you luck into it. Maybe if this race gets crazy at the end or some strategy, something like that, get a little lucky to finish inside the top 10, but I think he's more than capable. I mean, he also, like I said, won at Homestead in Xfinity. He also won at Auto Club in Xfinity. So I think this is just a really good track type for Harrison Burton. I'm going to take a little sprinkle at 20-1.
Listen, I'm never going to call you crazy, but I might call you crazy. Listen, Harrison Burton, I do believe in the talent. I don't know what's going on with this kid. Like they're struggling. This Wood Brothers car, I mean, they made so many gains with the drivers that they had in it. And Burton, I mean, he's young. He's still learning the cup level. I love the fact that they're giving him a third year, to be honest, because I mean, I hate when teams just give up on guys after 1 or 2 years. It takes a lot to be really solid in this series. Like you mentioned, he won here in 2020 in the Joe Gibbs car in the Xfinity Series. He has upside at this racetrack type. This was, I mean, high tire racetracks for Harrison Burton was his best in the Xfinity Series. So I hear you. I can still call you crazy because you're my friend.
He ran 14th in speed at Darlington. 14th.
I hear you. I mean, I hear what you're saying. And I mean, Darlington is our best comp. And I mean, you know, if you're this team, there's no testing. All right, we hit on something at Darlington. Let's try to perfect that so we can try to finish better, because we have been awful this year. I mean, I have him as like a 26th to 28th place car on intermediates this year. He's just had a rough year.
Yeah, but, you know, definitely a specific track type for him that I think suits him well. So Harrison Burton, a little funsy bet, top 10 finish at 20-1. That means there's only one thing left to do, Steve. We come off 4. We cross the start-finish line. We win what used to be the championship if it was at Homestead still. Unfortunately, it's at Phoenix now. But then we got to drive into victory lane. So what was our victory lane pick?
I know they spent a lot of money like upgrading Phoenix, but man, I really wish the championship was still at Homestead. Such a great race. But all right, not to beat a dead horse, we're going to go to William Byron here to take us home in victory lane. Plus 750 this week. We have been on the William Byron train all year. He's fast, man. He unloaded with so much speed last year at this race. He ran inside the top 5 most of the first like stage and a half. Had some issues. Some issues cost him, you know, running really well at the end of that race. Like if you go and you look at the metrics of Homestead from last year, he was right behind Larson until some stuff happened. So I think he's going to unload with a lot of speed. And I think that with Larson locked in, the focus for Hendrick Motorsports this weekend is going to be the 24 car. Can we get Byron in and go to Martinsville with our hands up and just worried? Like they're going to have an extra week to prepare for Phoenix. So I think if you're Cliff Daniels, you know, Homestead is great for Kyle Larson. You're focused on Phoenix. I mean, there's nothing else that matters at this point if you're Cliff Daniels in this 5 team. So hopefully that means our boy William Byron can kind of squeak by here and pick up the win. Again, he was so fast early in the race last year.
Yeah, if you look at stage 1 and 2, stage 1, Larson, Byron, Truex. Stage 2, Larson, Truex, Byron. So those guys were just the 3 dominant cars, at least for the more than first half of the race. So, William Byron, I think, is a really good pick to win, especially knowing Kyle Larson doesn't need to win here. It's not like they're going to be testing for Phoenix or anything. You can't really Homestead is about the worst possible track if you were to think about testing for Phoenix, because it's steeply banked, faster, high tire wear, true oval shape. Like it's all the things Phoenix are not. So there's no testing. So as far as Larson, so he could go out and win this race. But if he's running first and Byron's running second, or they're running 1-2 in any order, Byron's going to win this race. They're going to lock in another Hendrick Motorsports car into the championship would be the goal. Absolutely. So I love Byron at plus 750. It was the two names I put down on the victory lane sheet were William Byron and Chris Buscher, and you're on both of them. I'm on both of them. Let's hit a victory lane pick here, Stevie. So that is going to go ahead. Yeah.
No,
I think
I hope so. Yeah.
I think we're going to hit this one. Like, I have a good feeling about William Byron. We're either going to hit this one or we're going to hit Chris Buscher. I truly believe
I would love to see Buscher win as like a fan. I grew up, my dad was a huge Martin, Matt Kenseth, Roush fan. So I would love to see Roush, Fenway, Keselowski, second year of Keselowski being in management, in ownership with this team, make it to the Final Four. It would just be really cool, as a fan, to see Buscher get there.
And it would make Homestead crazy because right now Buscher's last in the standings of the 8 remaining guys. So
Martinsville,
that would make it absolutely crazy. So speaking of Martinsville, that is going to do it for us. Thanks for listening to the forever 400 episode of Running Hot, Action Network's motorsports betting podcast. We'll be back this time next week to talk about bets for the Xfinity 500 at the place we were just talking about, Martinsville Speedway. On behalf of my co-host, Stephen Young, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you back here next week on Running Hot from Action Network.